I haven't really been sure about how to make this video, to be totally honest, because I'm really split on the Akai Force. The first thing you might notice when looking at my Akai Force is just how dusty the deck saver is. It came with the deck saver, which is great, and I probably would have bought one if it didn't come with it, because this thing is huge. Like, when you're watching YouTube videos of various pieces of music technology, sometimes I think it's unclear the differences in size between some of these devices, and it cannot be understated just how massive the Akai Force is. And so it does need something like a deck saver if you want to keep it dust free, because the material it's made of collects dust really quickly, and because it's generally just too big to put in most drawers. In my current setup, I actually probably could fit it in a drawer, but in my last place, in my very tiny studio bedroom office I was in, where my rent was half of what this is, this didn't fit in any drawer I had, and so it's good it had the deck saver. But the reason it's this dusty is that I'm just really not using it as much as I kind of wished I would. And the reason for that is kind of obvious. I bought this thing primarily to be a live music performance tool, and I'm simply not performing live music. I finished an album about 2 years ago called There's Something Better. I'm very proud of it. Link below if you want to check it out. And after that, I was like, well, I should make a setup that lets me play these songs live. I was hopeful that it would be safer to be doing live performances, but for where I'm at currently, I don't really feel comfortable being in small packed rooms of people right now. And so I then focused on this channel and growing the channel and working on my second album, which doesn't have a title yet, although I think it's going to be called This Can't Be It. I'm really happy with what I'm making, but when I'm producing songs, I'm primarily using the Machine Plus, the MPC Live 2, or my desktop computer with Ableton on it, or Machine software. I'm not really using the Akai Force because I didn't buy it for music production. I bought it for music performance, and I think I bought it too early. And to be frank, when it comes to music production, even though this type of pad layout is one of my favorite ways to produce, because I own an MPC Live 2, especially right now in late July of 2022, this device just feels like it's behind. And so I know there's a lot of people who love the Force, and I really hesitated to even make this video because it's not necessarily going to be an I love the Akai Force video and it's perfect for everyone. Sadly, my experience has not led me to feel that way. But that being said, for those of you who love it and are getting great use out of it, don't worry if my opinion is different from yours. What matters most with a piece of music gear is how it works with you. And so if you're enjoying your experience with this gear or any other gear, and I ever disagree with you, don't even sweat it. I'm literally just a dude on the internet. With that in mind, I do want to talk about more about how I feel about the Force in case it could help other people decide if it's right for them or if they should get something else. So I already mentioned the size of this, but it really should be noted just how big the Akai Force is. This is a Galaxy S22 Ultra. It's one of the biggest smartphones you can buy right now, and it looks like a tiny baby on the Akai Force. This is the Machine Plus, and it really doesn't look very big compared to the Akai Force, especially in the orientation you actually use it in. For some people, the size of this device is not going to be an issue. They want it to be the center of their studio, and they're going to build around it. It fits on my quick lock stands, link below if you're interested. And you know, it does the thing. It's not too big if you have a setup like this, but in comparison to the MPC Live 2 and to the Machine Plus, and obviously things like the Polyend Tracker, it is a much larger device. And for whatever reason, the size of it just kind of feels like too much. But that being said, if we take off this deck saver, looking at the layout of the device, you can kind of see why the size is necessary. If I were on the Akai design team, I wouldn't necessarily know what to shrink or get rid of and maintain this functionality. You could probably bring the sides in a little bit and maybe bring the top down a little bit, but you kind of want to keep these buttons, these knobs, this navigation setup. You could arguably shrink the width of all of these and it would be okay. Same with these, but you really wouldn't want to shrink the width of these pads too much. And all that is to say, if they were going to make an Akai Force 2 or an Akai Force Lite, you could get it smaller, but you really wouldn't want to shrink it too much if you want to maintain the feature set of the device and the usability. If you're thinking about the Akai Force from a perspective of, I want this to be my only production and performance device, I think there's a pretty good value proposition here that is only slightly muddied by the recent MPC updates. In my past with the Force and the Live, or the MPC platform in general, it feels like it's kind of a back and forth. Sometimes the MPC gets a really cool feature that the Force doesn't have for a while, And then sometimes the Force gets a really cool feature that the MPC folks want. Right now, the big one the Force has is disk streaming. And right now, the big one that the MPCs have for me is the amp simulations, the sound browsers, and some of the additional plugins you can choose to buy on the MPC that you cannot choose to buy on the Force, as far as I'm aware. That will probably be rectified in the future, as these updates tend to go back and forth. That is a reason why I've been choosing to use the MPC over the Force. It just has more features I'm interested in right now when it comes to music production. I would also, and I've said this before and so have other people, but for that expansion bundle for the MPC, I would love to see it drop to $200 or less and to work on the Force. That'd be cool. A comment I get a lot is, I would love a long-term review of the Force. Can you compare the Force to other devices? Can you dive more in on the Force? And I have not been making that video because I have not really been using this device. And it's kind of sad. Over the last year or so, almost 2 years, but especially the last year, I have been trying to adopt a stance of really keeping music gear. I'm trying not to buy and sell music gear the way I buy and sell other types of technology like computers and phones. For me, holding on to a piece of gear for a while and learning it has been something I really enjoy. And it teaches me more about music production than just using the same piece of gear the same software ever has. So I have been very hesitant to consider getting rid of the Force because there's so much to learn with it, and it is clearly a cool device. But it's the first device in a while that I've really been thinking about getting rid of because I'm just not using it. And it's not because there's something inherently wrong with the Force. It's just because it doesn't inspire me as much as the other gear I already have. And so if you only could get one piece of gear, I would totally see an argument for the Akai Force. I would potentially recommend going more in the direction of an MPC Live, MPC One, especially if you're just starting. I feel like the MPC One, or if you don't want to spend a lot of money, something like the Novation Circuit Trax makes more sense as a starting device if you don't want to use a DAW. Because if you want to use a DAW, then probably just one of the M1, M2, or M1 Pro MacBooks is the way to go. If you're interested in the sound quality of Native Instruments stuff, the Machine Plus is actually at a really stable position compared to where it used to be, in my opinion. And you can sometimes find the Machine Plus used for very little more than the Mark III. And that would probably honestly be the device I recommend most people get, which I know is wild compared to where I used to be about the Machine Plus. But the sound quality on the Machine Plus is so good and the workflow is so good that I've actually been producing songs that are going to be on my album. And I can't really say the same for the Akai Force. I don't really like the hype synth very much. I don't like the tube synth very much. The saving grace is the ability to import key groups and to use tools like Kitmaker to turn machine expansions into MPC programs. But with all of that said, in a vacuum, the Force would be amazing, but the competition, even from their own parent company, makes this a harder tool for me to recommend personally. And so yeah, I just don't find myself being super inspired to use the Force. And you know, even having the sentence "use the Force" is a really fun part of the community. And I will say, I think the community around the Akai Force is one of the coolest, most supportive, awesome communities. And so again, I know I said it earlier, but if you're getting a lot of joy out of this product, or if you're interested in this product, I recommend watching folks like MaxiPoc and watching other great users of the Akai Force and see how they use it and how it sounds is inspiring for you. Because I'm literally just one dude and this is just my opinion. But because people have asked me, I do want to share how I feel. And this is the first device in a long time that I'm just not using and I'm really thinking about selling. Not because it's bad, just because I'm not sure it's the right fit for me. And I feel like someone else could get more out of literally this device. This one I own right now could be with a producer or a musician who would get so much more time and so much more joy out of it than I do. I haven't decided that I'm going to sell it because what often happens when I sell gear is that I sell it and then some brand new feature update comes out and I realize, oh, actually now it's what I want. The feature update that made me want to get this, for example, was the ability to import Ableton files and Ableton sessions into standalone. But to be honest, even with the workaround I outlined in one of my last videos about this, there's still just enough hiccups that I would almost rather get my money back from this, buy a MacBook Air or a MacBook Pro, and just use one of my controllers and play my sessions from the computer rather than from this. And if I'm not using this for live performance, I don't personally have a huge use for another Groovebox paradigm when I'm already wrapping my head around the Machine Plus and the MPC Live 2, let alone my DAWs. And so yeah, that is my honest thoughts and opinions and reviews of this device. I don't think it's a bad device. I think you can get really good deals on this. I ended up only paying $725 for this because the SATA bay doesn't work, but luckily the SD card port does. And so I have a 256 gig SD card and it supports disk streaming from the SD card. And so I ended up getting a really good deal on this thing. When I sell it, I think I'll probably be able to break even because I would sell it listing that it has the SATA issue. I would never want to mislead people. But I think for 700-ish, this is a great deal for this device. And so I don't regret buying it. I just don't think it's really for me. But it could be for you. If you're interested in any of the devices I've talked about, I have an affiliate link to Perfect Circuit or affiliate links to Amazon if that's where you like to buy stuff. If this video has brought you any knowledge or any entertainment, consider liking and subscribing. For those of you who already do, and for my patrons listed here, thank you so much for supporting my channel. It means the world to me. And as we've gone past 5,000 subscribers, it's honestly just overwhelming. So thank you again. If you feel like I crapped all over your favorite device, just remember again, I know I keep saying it, but I'm literally just a random dude. If it's working for you, that is so much more important than what my opinion is of this device. Don't let the haters get you down. Not that I'm a hater. I'm more just trying to be a fair critic here. And again, just sharing my own experience. All right, I'll catch you soon.